Wanted to go ahead and get this one made for today. I got a lot of stuff to do. And I want to also say that the telepathy that I consider telepathy in a way that I think almost everybody can understand it and maybe experience it. So, what I'm going to talk about now is just a little girl aggravating her grandfather. So, everybody was, you know, are you talking to Paul and and all this stuff, right? So my little brain tries to talk to Paul with my brain, and I would just like do it real quietly. Me and my grandmother would be sitting in the house, and he would come in. He'd go, "Are you talking to me?" I go, "Are you talking to me?" He goes, "No. Are you talking to me?" And I was like, "I'm not sure," because I didn't know if it was working or not. And he'd go back outside, and I'd laugh. And my grandmother would go, "Are you talking to your grandfather?" And I said, "No, not really." I said, "I'm kind of trying to, but not loud." And she would say, "Well, tell him, something to make up something." And I said, "Okay." And I'd do it. And then my grandfather would come back in the house and just look at her. So what I don't know what I was, or if he could really hear what I was trying to say. I never really I never really knew. I don't think. I don't think I did. And so that my dad and I, so the reason I remember so much is because my dad was constantly saying, "Hey, do you remember this? Do you remember that? Remember when you did this? Remember when you did that?" And so we did the same thing. "Are you talking to me? I don't know. Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?" And it was fun, but also I could receive it as well, not in language. It was never language. It was never words. It was always feelings or something like that. I can't explain it. If you haven't experienced it, there's no way I can put it in words. But I would be outside playing, and I'd come in. And I'd say, "Who said my name?" And all it would be was somebody would just be sitting there and go, "Is she okay? Where's she at?" And they might not say it out loud. But even if they said it out loud, it freaked them out because I would run in the door and say, "Who said my name?" And the thing about it was, they never uh, put it down, or they would just look at each other really weird, and they didn't they didn't tell me I was wrong, basically, and they just let me be me. So even though all of the emotions and everything that was going on at the time were real, I understand now that they were other people's emotions that I was feeling. And I walked around all the time with my eyes closed. And I walked, and everybody was like, why are your eyes closed?" Well, I could see with my eyes closed. And the only way I can explain it is like when you put on a VR headset and you can kind of see the see-through kind of thing. And now I understand, kind of, maybe, the reason for that. So last video I talked about seeing people's causal bodies. And that's what I was seeing was their causal body. Um, aura, is, I think, is what everybody says, right? And so what I was saying last time, when people are being their true, authentic self, they're just bright, right? Everybody around me was lit up. They were bright. And that's what I would tell them. I was like, y'all are too bright. Y'all are too bright. They're like, no, you're bright. And I was like, no, you don't understand what I'm saying. And, but so I don't know if it was a combination of everybody around me just being so bright or if it's just something kids can do because I've seen these shows on Gaia, right? If you are going to start a spiritual journey, the first thing you do is get a subscription to Gaia, right? That's where you start. And I saw all these shows about kids who were walking around with blindfolds on, that could see everything around them. And I was like, how did I lose that? Right? Why did I let that go away? Well, our brains develop cognitively, right? You go through stages. And I don't know if it was because my grandmother was a nurse or what, but this woman just knew so much. And at the time, I didn't fully understand what she was telling me. But I always just paid so much attention to her and everything that she said. My grandfather and I played like kids. And, she saw that. And even in the game, right? She would ask me, she says, where's God at in this game you're playing? I was like, God's everything. And she was like, well, um, is God in your heart? And I was like, well, no, Jesus is in my heart. And she said, well, I thought Jesus was on the dashboard. And I said, well, yeah, he rides on the dashboard, but you keep Jesus in your heart, right? She said, well, how about since Jesus is on the dashboard, why don't you put God in your heart and let God control the game? And I said, okay. It made sense to me. And so that became part of the game. And my grandfather told me that I was going to have a, a baby cousin and that his name was going to be Patrick. And so I pulled Patrick into the game, right? I went to the hospital and picked him up and in the game. And so that was my imaginary friend, right? Um, Somehow I figured out to take Patrick out of the game and play with me because that way I had somebody to play with. And I would talk to Patrick, and I even walked in uh, I had two nannies. So Nanny Willie, I was at her house, and I walked in and I said, Patrick's just going to come in for a minute. And they were like, what? And I was like, oh, yeah, they can't see. Never mind, never mind. Oh, and I was trying to cover up something that they were just had gotten used to at this point. I was a lot um, as a kid. And so my grandmother was very adamant about if something was in the game, what was it? Right? What's in this, what are you doing in your head? Right? She, she tried to understand it as much as she could. And she also understood how not only kids' brains develop, but how their bodies develop. So there was a tree and I wanted to climb the tree, and she would only let me climb so far because she said my bones were still, um, they would shatter. if you broke a bone before you got done growing, it wouldn't heal back right. So as I got older, I could climb higher in the tree because my bones were better. I was like, oh, my bones okay now, Nanny? Can I get in the tree? And so, she just knew things. And she actually graduated high school with my dad. She decided she wanted to be a nurse, so she had to go back and get her high school diploma. So they graduated high school together. But she just had this way of knowing things. And she absolutely enjoyed the fact that I did aggravate my grandfather. But at the same time, she was very concerned about what was going on in my head and what was going on around me. And I really just listened to her. When it came to anything that had to do with God, I went to her for answers. And the answers I got always made sense. It had to make sense, or I wasn't going to allow it. And so that was so. If I hadn't had that, if I hadn't had her or them or my family allowing me to just be me, I would have never been able to get back to me. And so the I don't just want to explain telepathy to people. I I started out trying to teach manifesting, and I can't do that. I have to wake people up to the fact that they're already doing it. And bear with me here. So, if you're incarnated, so first of all, you have to believe in incarnation. So if you don't, your brain will stop right there. But the if you're incarnated here right now, you are a master uh, manifester. That's all this planet needs right now. Well, it doesn't need anything else. It's healthy. The consciousness is getting healthy. And so your thoughts, we've all heard of law of attraction and all that stuff. Your thoughts make things happen, your intention and your emotional state is your frequency. So you draw in the other emotional states or, whatever. And so again, with my dad, he had so much intelligence. He was so smart. What he did not have was emotional intelligence because I could tell how he really felt. Now, to everybody else, he looked like Joe Cool, but he wasn't inside. And what I picked up from that was just his calmness um, shifted things. Just being calm when everybody expects you to lose it shifts energy. It doesn't shift your energy, it shifts theirs. And so when I was younger, it was all about matching energy. But matching energy is not healthy if the energy you're matching is, not good for you, not on that frequency you need it to be on. Or anyway. So you're already manifesting. You're already creating and doing. You're just doing it unconsciously. So It's all about bringing the unconscious or subconscious conscious. So in my game, Patrick was my conscience. He was the one that was always, you know, uh, we're going to get in trouble. We shouldn't go here, go here, or, and so he became my conscience. I told Nanny, I said, Patrick's afraid we're going to get in trouble. She said, he's your conscience. Listen to him. He's very important. And so he became my conscience, that thing, like like when something's weighing on your conscience, right? That's what that was. And so I don't like to be tested. And the reason I don't like to be tested is because someone tried to test me in a hospital when I was little, and it did not go well because they were hurting Patrick. Nobody understood what I was saying when I said they're, you know, um, hurting him, right? Okay. So whatever was happening, right? It was something that was happening um, to my conscience. And that was so scary to me because my conscience was a person. It was my imaginary friend. It was my baby cousin. And I thought that was about to be taken away from me. And so I reacted, and there's something else that I could do when I was little, and that was um, affect electricity. If I became really upset, scared, or hurt, or felt like I needed, like scared, okay, I would scream and the lights would go out. And I did that in this hospital with full intention of whoever or whatever was happening for it to stop. And it did. And the electricity went out. Not just the electricity in the hospital, but it did. And when my grandfather passed away, I felt it again. And so it was not a conscious um, connection, but a subconscious connection. And so that's different. You communicate differently, right? You communicate with your higher self. Your subconscious is your higher self. Think of it that way. So people talk about awakening as, you know, getting in touch with your higher self. And you do that through discernment. So discernment is not just what feels right. It's not just intuition. If you are caught up in an emotional, if you're having triggers, then it's not intuition, it's a trigger. If that, I hope that makes sense. I hope I can make that make sense. Um, Triggers are not intuition, triggers are triggers. But they can be intuition in a way because they're happening for a reason. They're happening because you need to look at something. It's your higher self knocking on the door, kind of saying, hey, look at this, it's important. And when you look at your triggers that way, right, instead of something you have to defeat or conquer or climb over, they're not. It's just something, um, it's just something in there that needs to be looked at. It's all within. You create your reality from within. And so discernment, when you can do that, when you can start getting in touch with your higher self, regulating your nervous system is a good starting point, because when you focus on regulating your nervous system, you're focusing on that mind body connection, real connection. You start to listen to your body and you start to set up some good practices for yourself to, you know, take care of it. You start to sense when you're, not comfortable or something needs to change. You start to discern that. You don't react. And once you do that, it flows over and out, because when you're having conversations and you're interacting with people, you're responding. You're responding to how they show up for you, and you get to choose how you show up for them. And I would, you know, I would love to be able to teach people how to manifest, but if you don't have my brain, I can't do it. But to try to show you that you're already doing it seems to be the better way to go about it. And that is by looking at your human behavior and the behavior of others, in a way that helps you grow. Not to blame and not to play victim, but in a way to help you grow. So that's going to be how I approach this going forward, um, with everything. And that's a little bit more of the backstory of how the game got set up and the characters and all that good stuff. And I'm actually working on a children's story, um, kind of based off of this, but not really. It's kind of inspired by it, but it's going to be a lot different, but kind of the same. But it'll be cute. It'll be little kids teaching aliens about humans, because from what I gather, aliens don't have the emotional range we do. And so I'm thinking it could really help with kids and their nervous system, to understand their nervous system, maybe a little. We'll see. That's where I'm headed at right now, and we'll see how that develops. But um, basically, I just started thinking up a new game, and the old game I remember, but I only needed to remember it to the point to where I got the connections back that I needed to make. Um, the things that I used to see, um, are internal now. I don't have to see them out there. I can feel them, um, internally. And so I've taken that game and integrated it, right? We program ourselves. We program our thinkers, right? If your thinkers, um, not going the right way, change the direction. That's what my grandfather used to tell me. Say, if you think about something bad, just turn your thinker around and, think about something better. um, so to teach that is, it's hard to teach. So when with a children's book, it's not about teaching, it's about showing. So I think it'll actually be. I would really rather it be a cartoon. But we'll start with the book and then um, do the cartoon. You know what? Maybe I should get somebody to draw them first, and maybe then give them names. But anyway, I got a lot to do today. Till next time.